So it's really exciting to be here. It's wonderful to be at Evergreen State College and to be at this annual meeting for the People's Movement Assembly. And you know, I just want to give you all a big thank you for doing everything that you're doing right now, because it is the power of us fighting these fights that we are fighting. It is our power that has brought us to a really historic moment right now, where democracy and justice really are breaking out all around us, from the democracy revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia, to the Occupy movement all over the country, to the teacher strike in Chicago, standing up for public schools, for all kids, for quality education, to the blockades of the Keystone Pipeline and the blockades of the coal trains coming to Washington State, and the eviction blockades and the student strikes to stop tuition hikes from Quebec to California down to Mexico and all across the country. So we've got democracy breaking out basically all over the place. And what's so exciting is that as democracy is breaking out, people are also breaking away from these establishment political parties that have gotten us to the crisis that we're in. And you put all that together, and we're coming up on a national election where people actually, you know, pay attention and have a conversation that otherwise we don't have. So, you know, connecting all the dots here, it means that we can make this election a powerful tipping point to start taking back our democracy and the peaceful, just, green future we deserve. And we need that tipping point because we are up against the breaking point, as so many people here know. It's a breaking point for people, for the economy, for jobs, for schools, for our healthcare system, for affordable higher education. And it's not just for people, it's also for the planet, for the climate, for the environment, for peace, for civil liberties, for our democracy. We really are at the breaking point. So it's up to us to turn that breaking point into a tipping point. And people are realizing we didn't get here just on account of one political party. We've gotten here because of the policies delivered by both Democrats and Republicans for the past several decades. This has been a crisis that's been long in the making, and in fact it's been accelerating. And over the past 4 years under Barack Obama, we've actually seen the policies of George Bush embraced, and we've seen Barack Obama embrace those policies and go even further. So I'm going to just quickly run through the litany, because you'll find if your friends ask you who you're voting for and you say, well, I'm actually going to stand up and vote for myself, I'm going to stand up and be counted and vote for the future and the solutions we deserve, your friends are going to say, what? You're doing what? So it's worth going over sort of how we got here and what's been happening under Obama's watch. Because in fact, you know, it really is two parties. It's a two-party tango here that's gotten us to the crisis we're in. So on the bailouts for Wall Street, remember, it was $700 billion under that program brought to us by George Bush, but under Obama, it's been $4.5 trillion, and that's just in the dollars dispersed. If you add to that the zero-interest loans, it's another $16 trillion on top of that. If you look at the offshoring of our jobs, you know, there again, it was Bill Clinton who brought us NAFTA that began this offshoring of our jobs and the undermining of wages here. And then it was George Bush who carried out NAFTA. But under Barack Obama, we have even more of these free trade agreements, which were expanded to Colombia and Panama and South Korea. And now there's a secret free trade agreement. And these are free if you're a corporation. But if you're a human being, they are not free at all. They are very costly. So now the president is secretly negotiating this Trans-Pacific Partnership that will continue to send our jobs overseas. And it actually undermines American sovereignty as well, because it puts an international corporate board in charge of saying whether or not our laws and our regulations pass muster, or whether we have to pay some enormous fine to corporations because we're a part of this agreement, which gives them ultimate sovereignty over us. So it's an absolute outrage. Or to look at the skyrocketing of student debt. The debt crisis began under Bush, but it has just gone ballistic under Obama. And what was the difference between Obama and Romney on student debt? Zip. They both said that they would be heroes and stay the course on this sinking ship of student debt. They were going to stop the interest rates from going up. Well, that's not enough. When an entire generation of students has been turned into indentured servants with these draconian loans, absolutely, you can... Unforgiving loans, especially customized for students, lacking all the consumer protections that are a part of every other loan. It's only students who can be followed out, you know, to the grave, basically, and have your wages garnered to pay back these debts, for whom bankruptcy is no escape from these debts as well. Every other loan out there has some humane kind of protections to it. There are none in student loans. You made a terrible mistake. You didn't hire lobbyists to go out and get you the loans that you need. And that's how our political system works. You know, it is sold to the highest bidder. And because students are not the highest bidder, you know, you are the latest cash cow for a predatory political system. Instead of bailing out Wall Street for the 4th time, you may have heard this announced 2 weeks ago. The Fed is now bailing out Wall Street again after trillions and trillions of bailouts which have gone nowhere. The banks are still too big to fail, too big to jail, still writing their own ticket for their own profits in Congress and in the White House. It's absolutely outrageous. They are being bailed out again, $40 billion a month for the indefinite future without end. We, the taxpayers, are continuing to buy up their bad debt. They built it. They should own it, that bad debt. Instead of bailing out the banks, we should be bailing out the students and breaking up the banks. And we'll come back to the issue of student loans and public higher education in a minute. But I want to just finish going through this little laundry list of where we've gone under Obama, because you're going to find yourself needing to do political therapy. We're all therapists now for our friends who are still locked into abusive relationships. It's an abusive political relationship, in fact, with a guy that has convinced a lot of people that they need to apologize for him, even though he's taken away their jobs and their homes and their credit ratings and their future and their climate. People are apologizing with all the signposts of abusive relationships. Oh, somebody else made him do it. It was the Republicans, you know. Or it was that addiction. It was that addiction, in this case, not to alcohol or a substance other than money. You know, he had to do it to get those campaign contributions. Or, I know he really loves me in his heart, and it'll get better next year. So, you know, important to recognize an abusive relationship. Important to recognize an abusive relationship where our friends are stuck in it. So part of doing therapy is the reality check. Just walking through this little laundry list of what the relationship has delivered. And we mentioned the bailouts for Wall Street, the offshoring of our jobs and these so-called free trade agreements for corporations, the skyrocketing of student debt, the home foreclosure crisis, which continues absolutely without a hitch. Started under Bush and skyrocketed under Obama. He had $300 billion appropriated by Congress in order to stop the foreclosures, to buy them up, to negotiate with families and keep them in their homes. And Obama said, nope, too much moral hazard. In other words, these families that had been victimized by predatory loans by Wall Street, it would be morally hazardous to bail out the victims of predatory loans. He got it backwards. The moral hazard is with Wall Street. It's time to throw Wall Street out of the White House. And one of Obama's very first moves, in fact, was to bring Wall Street into the White House in the form of Larry Summers, who gave us this whole crisis. He engineered the Wall Street meltdown, and this is who Obama decided to bring back in. He brought in Timothy Geithner as Secretary of Treasury, the guy who had overseen the waste, fraud, and abuse on Wall Street and just looked the other way. And then brought in Goldman Sachs, brought in Jeffrey Immelt, the head of GE, who personally closed more factories, sent more jobs overseas, and put more workers out of work in this country than any other single person. This is who still heads the Obama Jobs Council, of all things. So who, where were the Republicans in the room when all these decisions were made? There were no Republicans to blame this on. This is a bipartisan crisis which is fully owned by the Democratic Party as much as by the Republican Party. And to just continue through some of the highlights, to do that reality check with your addicted friends. For the war effort, this was going to be the peace president, right? Well, the reason, you may know, the whole reason that he was forced to bring the troops home from Iraq, it was not because he wanted to bring the troops home. It was because George Bush had set the date of withdrawal with this immunity agreement with Iraq for U.S. soldiers. So Obama had fought tooth and nail to try to extend the date on the expiration of that immunity. So ironically, it took George Bush to actually bring the troops home from Iraq under Barack Obama. What does that tell you about this peace president? And then likewise, on day 3 of his administration, he began to bomb the heck out of Pakistan. There were no Republicans in the room to force that decision, nor the surge into Afghanistan. And we've seen how much good that surge has done as U.S. troops now are being shot up by the very soldiers that we're training. After $4 trillion, 2,000 lives plus lost of just the American soldiers, let alone, uncountable lives of Iraqi civilians. The 2,000th soldier, in fact, was actually killed by an Iraqi police force that the American soldiers were training. So this just speaks volumes about how much we accomplish out of the barrel of a gun in the effort to bring so-called democracy to the Middle East. This is a wrong-headed policy. We need to transform American foreign policy. Our foreign policy should be based on international law, human rights, and diplomacy. And we're actually calling for downsizing the military to year 2000 levels. The bloated military budget has been doubled since then. We certainly are not twice as secure. Dropping bombs on weddings and funerals through drone warfare and the rest has not won the hearts and minds of the Middle East. It's very clear. In Pakistan, 75% of civilians now identify the United States as the chief enemy of Pakistani civilians, not the Taliban or Al-Qaeda. So we need to take our foreign policy back from the weapons industry and the fossil fuel industry and make it a foreign policy that actually serves us and the cause of justice, peace, and international law. And we can do that. So just to finish a couple of these counts here on the Obama record. Again, the attacks on civil liberties, on immigrant rights, on medical marijuana, the expanding drug wars, all of this is what we were supposedly going to avoid by voting the lesser evil. You may know about that drumbeat that we've heard since the year 2000, the Nader-Bush-Gore election, that told us we have to be quiet, that we can't stand up for what it is that we deserve to solve the crises that are really sending all of us over the cliff. They've told us we have to be quiet and simply go along to get along and vote our fears. But there is now a track record for this very wrong-headed strategy. We've seen that silence is not an effective political strategy. And in fact, this politics of fear has actually delivered everything that we were afraid of. And I find that's a good one to pass on to our hand-wringing friends trapped in an abusive relationship, that to point out that this politics of fear delivered all those things we were supposed to be quiet in order to avoid: the expanding wars, the expanding Wall Street bailouts, the offshoring of our jobs, the attack on immigrant rights, which has been just gone ballistic. In the first 3 years of the Obama administration, more immigrants were targeted, racially profiled, deported, split from their families, separated from their children cruelly, more in the first 3 years of the Obama administration than in 8 years under George Bush. Same thing on our civil liberties. All of the violations of George Bush against our civil liberties were codified under Barack Obama and in fact expanded, including this indefinite detention, the president seizing dictatorial powers, provided by Congress, and he signed the bill and advocated to push to the extremes that it went, to enable the president to throw whoever he wants, whenever he wants, into jail indefinitely, without charge and without trial. This is an utter violation of our most basic civil liberties and freedoms on which this country was founded, and we will continue to fight that until we have repealed this indefinite detention. And along with that, I have to mention the assassinations as well, which this president codified and then extended to actually apply also to American citizens, and it has been used. The president is the keeper of the kill list, reviews it on Kill Tuesdays. So, this is not what democracy and civil liberties look like. And finally, I should add the climate as well. As the people in Washington State know so well, as you courageously fight the expansion of coal and fight that train that is trying to bring lethal coal, which will carry lethal levels of climate change gases out to port and out to China, as well as, contaminate the environment here in Washington with coal dust and with the traffic and the trains and the trucks that you don't need. In fact, for every dollar spent on fossil fuels, it's well understood we can create 3 times as many jobs in clean, renewable energy and conservation. That is where we need to be putting our dollars and our investments right now. So on all of these counts, the politics of fear has delivered all those things we were afraid of. Obama, not only embraced the drill baby drill of George Bush, he went beyond to give the thumbs up to fracking, to more offshore oil drilling, to opening up our national parks, to fossil fuel exploration, to opening up the incredibly fragile and imperiled Arctic to the same thing. He also undermined the international climate accords in Durban, South Africa, 2 years ago, saying, oh, we don't need an agreement, we can wait till 2020. There's no way on God's earth that we can wait till 2020. We cannot wait even till 2016. It's not just okay to stand up for the climate we need to rescue right now, and to do that in the voting booth as well, and to vote a green vote for green energy we deserve now. It's not just okay to do that. It is life-saving, it is job-saving, and it is planet-saving. So just quickly, to walk into the voting booth, Talk about throwing away your vote. To walk into the voting booth and pull the lever or punch the card for either Wall Street-sponsored candidate. In the minds of some people, it's a reluctant vote. It's a lesser evil vote. But in the mind of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, it is an all-out endorsement for 4 more years of Wall Street rule. That is the very definition of throwing away your vote. In fact, it's even worse than throwing away your vote. It's actually using your vote as a weapon against yourself to tell them to keep doing the things that are driving us all over the edge. But on the other hand, to stand up and vote green in this election is to cast a vote that cannot be suppressed. It is to issue a call that cannot be stopped for the green, just, sustainable solutions that are available to us right now. Whether we win the office or we simply win the day by standing up and driving these solutions forward, either way it is a win, and they are quaking in their boots that we should wake up to the power that we have to transform the political landscape in this election on November 6th. As Alice Walker says so beautifully, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing they have it to start with. And we have it, and we're waking up to that fact. Imagine what would happen. There are 36 million students and recent graduates right now who are indentured servants with the debt crisis and the high unemployment rates, 50%, that students are facing. What if word got out and went viral among 36 million students that we could put an end to student debt on November 6th by going and voting to end student debt? Imagine what the world would look like on November 7th. It would be totally different. 36 million students, by the way, is enough to win the election. There are 90 million people that are expected to come out and vote. If there were 36 million students, plus some occupiers, plus some of the 1 out of every 2 Americans are now in poverty or low income heading for poverty. So bring in some of those people. Right now, 1 out of every 2 eligible voters is expected to stay home because they haven't heard about our race. They know that Obama and Romney don't support them. They're voting with their feet to say no to the establishment political parties. 90 million voters. What if we got word out to some of them? Add that all up, 36 million plus another 10 plus maybe another 50. We could actually turn politics on its head on November 6th if we went viral. We could have our own Tahrir Square moment on November 6th, and we can make that happen. They want to tell us, you know, don't bother, you can't win, is how the conversation always starts. You can't win, remember? You can't win, right? You got it? You can't win. But in fact, we actually can win. And there are more than one ways to win. So don't let them define what the win is, for one thing. You know, if we win the office, we're going to turn the White House into a greenhouse, and the world will be better for it. If we fall short of winning the White House, remember that if you're ever going to win it, you've got to begin it. The clock is ticking, and we got to start now. But in addition, if you don't win the office, you can win the day by driving these solutions into the daylight, because Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are doing everything in their power to keep the solutions we need off the table. And by getting even 5%, 10%, 15% of the vote, those solutions are no longer off the table. They are on the table, and in fact, they are unstoppable because, 1, we must have them. 2, they don't have a single exit strategy in their minds, in their toolbox. They don't have a single exit strategy from the next Wall Street crash, from the continued offshoring of our jobs and declining of wages, from the continued skyrocketing of student debt, from the continued meltdown of the climate and our environment. They don't have a single thing to say about any of those things. They are very busy talking about everything but. So for all those reasons, we are going to win the day. The only question is when. They are going to continue driving ordinary Americans, working Americans, elders whose Social Security and Medicare are going to be cut. There is a grand bargain that is in the works. You will see after November 6th, unless we are in the White House, there are cuts on the way from Democrats and Republicans to dismantle Medicare and Social Security. You can be sure. So elders will be pushed into our camp. 20 million elders right now are being kept out of poverty by Social Security. The Democrats are proposing that we stop the cost of living adjustments, that we reduce that cost of living adjustment, and that we raise the eligibility age for Medicare. So they've got changes of their own that are kind of between the lines right now, but they have gone on record and they refuse. They refuse when asked to say that they're not going to cut Medicare and Social Security. So you can be sure it's going to happen. Elders will continue to be driven into our camp right along with young people who are being screwed out of a future, not only because of debt and unemployment, but also because the climate crisis is falling full bore on your shoulders. So we are here as the lifeboat, as people continue to jump off of that sinking Titanic of the Democratic and Republican parties. Our lifeboat is strong. It continues to grow. We have the power of truth, justice, the facts, and we actually have the solutions on our side that are supported by large majorities in poll after poll. So we actually have public opinion on our side. So if democracy has anything to do with this, we've already won this election. We just have to implement that win and do an end run around the political repression that is keeping the 1% very much in control with their stranglehold on our democracy. This is all about breaking that stranglehold, taking back our democracy, and turning the breaking point we face into the tipping point we need to take back the peaceful, just, green future we deserve. So quickly before we go to questions, I just want to run through that agenda, which I've alluded to, but I just want to be specific. We're talking about a Green New Deal as an emergency program. Yes. An emergency program that will create the jobs we need and put an end to unemployment. We're talking about 25 million jobs in the green economy to jumpstart that economy that puts an end to climate change, that zeroes out greenhouse gases, and that makes wars for oil obsolete, all rolled into one. This is an emergency plan. It calls for creating jobs at the community level, national funding on the order of the first stimulus package, in fact, less than the first stimulus package, about $600 billion in the first year to jumpstart this program. But it would create far more jobs than the stimulus package, which created 2 or 3 million. It would create 25 million jobs because our funds would be used to directly create jobs, not for tax breaks. Tax breaks don't create jobs. So we would create far more jobs for the same amount of money, prioritizing the jobs that communities decide they need to become sustainable. So we're talking about jobs in the green economy, clean renewable energy, conservation, efficiency, local sustainable organic agriculture, public transportation, including active transportation, safe bike paths and safe sidewalks that lead to transit hubs. And you can bike and walk to school and to work or to a public transit and integrate activity back into our lives without having to buy yourself an expensive subscription to a expensive sports club and drive for an hour to go do your exercise. You can actually get your exercise as part of your daily activity. This is how societies get healthy. And if you put together pollution prevention, healthy food, and a largely plant-based or an organic diet, which is local and fresh food, as well as active transportation, that's what your mother and your grandmother always told you you needed to do to get healthy. And you know what? They're right. Right now, we have not a healthcare system, we have a sick care system, and it's making us bankrupt. At the same time, it's making the insurance and pharmaceutical companies rich. It's making us bankrupt while we get sicker. And in fact, we're spending $2 trillion a year on a sick care system where 75% of those dollars are actually spent treating chronic diseases that are preventable at a tiny fraction of the cost. How do we prevent those diseases? Through the Green New Deal, by ending pollution, by creating a healthy, affordable, accessible, local sustainable food supply, and through public and active transportation. So the Green New Deal is a win-win-win. It provides for the public services and public works, as well as jump-starting small businesses and worker cooperatives. And then just very briefly, so we can jump to a couple of questions, we're also calling for health care as a human right through Medicare for all. It more than pays for itself. And we're calling for free public higher education and ending student debt. It should be free. We know that it more than pays for itself. For every dollar invested in public higher education, we get $7 back in economic benefits to everybody, including more than enough revenue to pay for public higher education. So this is a win-win for all of us. It's an investment that we must make in our future. We guaranteed a high school degree throughout the 20th century because it was essential for economic security. So in the 21st century, now that a college degree is essential for economic security, it's time to provide a college education for free through our public higher ed system. Yeah. And just for the record, we're calling for downsizing the military, cut the budget in half, bring the war dollars and the troops home and the bases, and retire the drones. Don't bring them home. Dismantle them out at sea. We also call for ending the drug wars, legalize marijuana. It's a substance that is dangerous because it's illegal. It's not illegal because of being dangerous. End the war on drugs. It's a failed racist war. We need to treat the problems of addiction and overuse as public health and mental health problems, not as criminal problems. We can empty out the jails, put that money to better work. And treat immigrant rights as human rights and create a welcoming and legal path to citizenship. So this is the agenda that, by and large, America supports in poll after poll in large majorities. Why don't we have it? Because we have a political system which has been hijacked by the economic elite. And we've got an economic and political elite that are basically in bed together. They have been for a long time. And we are accelerating under both Democrats and Republicans in the wrong direction. But there is a movement for democracy and justice. Thanks to you, thanks to the people in this room, that movement is alive and well in so many ways. And on November 6th, we're going to bring it into the voting booth. And what you can do is get on the internet, go to our website, jillstein.org. You can get our newsletter and forward that to your friends. You can get on Facebook. You can get on Twitter. If you like, share, and repost on a regular basis, we do have the potential to go viral and absolutely turn politics on its head in the course of this race. And however far we get, it's a victory. It is a win for us, and it's a win we can continue to build on. There is no way that they can hold us back, because our future depends on taking back our democracy and a politics that is of, by, and for the people. When this election is over in November 6th, we roll right over into phase 2, and we continue building. I discovered a long time ago as an activist that what a political party is a coalition across the issues. They want us to be marooned into several different issues, make it a divide and conquer game. There's nothing they want more than 1,000 points of light, all flashing without coordination, incapable of actually moving us forward. But you know what happens? When you focus light beams together, you get a laser beam, which can really get the job done. And that's what... I encourage you to join your local Green Party. If you don't have a Green chapter, if you don't have a Campus Greens here on campus, get in touch with us through headquarters, HQ, at jillstein.org. We can help you set up a local Green Party chapter on campus. We can help you get in touch with the State Green Party here in Washington, which is a wonderful party. We're always looking to create more local chapters to keep the work going, because in between running for elections, we are doing the work on the ground to stop the coal trains, to stop the nuclear power plants, to stop the offshoring of our jobs, and to start the health care as a human right, to promote the free public higher education that we deserve, and all the other solutions that are here right now, clean, renewable energy. So these are the solutions that are there and waiting for us. Our time has come. As Alice Walker also says, we are the ones we've been waiting for. They are not. It's time to stand up and be counted. Thank you all so much for taking our future back, making it peaceful, just, green, and democratic. That's the future we deserve. Thank you all so much.